Everybody, welcome. Ralph Havens here, autoimmuneanswers.com. Everybody, Ralph Havens here, autoimmuneanswers.com. And this is a very special Friday, everybody, welcome, Matrix Energetics and Beyond session for you. And let me just get everything set up here. So this morning, something really big is happening here in Washington State, and I'm asking for your help. So, I was watching Del Bigtree last night, High Wire with Del Bigtree. He has a show on YouTube every Thursday about vaccine safety and about what's going on in the vaccine world. And, if you've been watching the news, if you're at all paying any attention at all, you've heard probably about a measles outbreak and a big epidemic. I think there's 60 children that have had measles here in Washington State. And it's like the governor's declared a state of emergency, and everything in the news that you see is about how it's just terrible and we have to prevent it. And it's all a lie. It's all a lie. And we're up against something. If you haven't watched some of this stuff that I've been sharing, or Del Bigtree's stuff, or paid attention to what's going on with the vaccines and autism, there's 1 in 32 children now that have autism. It used to be 1 in 10,000. And there's been all sorts of stuff in the news about the link between autism and vaccines has been debunked, and the science is already settled. And that's all you hear. And vaccines are safe and effective. As Del Bigtree says, bumper sticker slogans. And but nobody's talking about the science in the actual science and what's really going on. And, Del Bigtree did he came up to Washington this week, and we were there in Washington's capital, Olympia, and he was speaking in front of the Capitol, and we've got that on film. We'll get it up pretty soon. But the testimony that he had in front of the Senate was really big. He only had, I think, 2 or 3 minutes max. And so he knows a lot of stuff, and he knows the malfeasance. He knows the lies that have been given by pharma and what's really going on. And you might think, oh, come on, Ralph, it's there's 2 sides of this thing. And the drug companies are doing the best they can. And the lawmakers are trying to protect the children, and these diseases are dangerous, right? And it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Let's be really frank here. It's an absolute lie, but you've got to actually look. And so Del had all this research and all this stuff that he was going to talk about. He woke up in the morning and he said, what am I going to do? And so what he did is what a lot of athletes do. It's maybe what David did when he was going up against the big giant Goliath. If you know that story in the Bible, the little peasant boy with nothing but a slingshot and some stones going up this giant that always won his battles and could fight and win anything. And little David was going to go up against Goliath. It's what athletes do when they're going to go do something big. You do your training, you do your work, you do your studying, you do your things to head in business, you do your things to learn your trade, you study and you work very hard and you make things happen. And then the magic, what a lot of the greats do is they let go. And they trust. And they ask for guidance. There was a show, I think it was called What the Bleep Do We Know? It was quite a few years ago, and it was about how to manifest using your mind and energy and spirit. And they talked about a study that was done in Washington, D.C., and they brought in all these meditators, big people that did lots of meditation from all sorts of spiritual traditions. And I don't know if it was hundreds or thousands, but they brought in a lot of people and they meditated. And their idea was they were going to test the crime rate, how much violent crime was in Washington, D.C. this summer, a certain summer. And then they did all this meditation, and then they tested again to see how much crime was there. And they knew how much crime tended to be in Washington, D.C., and it was a very hot summer. And what happened was the crime rate went way down when they meditated. So there's a lot of power in meditation, in prayer, in dropping into your heart. So I'm going to do a session for us in a minute, a meditation, a session of prayer. And I'm asking you to join me, and whether, this can only be done for good. You can't be used this stuff for evil. The other side, the people that are committing absolute fraud and are killing babies literally with their lies, with their vaccines, they can do all sorts of stuff. They can put mandatory vaccination laws in place. They can force our children to do stuff under the rule of law. They can bring police, like they did in Vancouver, Washington, to a house and tell people you have to do well baby checkups. The police actually did that in the United States recently. And so there's laws in place in New York that are trying to put in place to allow the police to come in if the governor declares a state of emergency and mandatory vaccinate against your will inside your own body against your will. So we're up against a big thing, and the drug companies already have in their plan, their business plan, to have every human on Earth having at least two vaccines, not two drugs continuously in their body, medicating everybody. It's a big profit thing for them. It's a business plan. And it's pure evil. It's pure evil. Let's be frank with this. If you actually do the research, you're going to see that these guys are pure evil. They're convicted felons. They're already paid billions of dollars for their fraud in their research. These are known things. Our government has paid out $4 billion for vaccine injuries already. We can't sue them. It's against the law to sue them. But one thing that they can't control is our hearts. Can't control that. And all of our hearts. I was at the rally and I had to break away. It was great. It was awesome. I had a session with one person. I do sessions over distance healing sessions. And I had one session. So I went to a coffee shop, cool little coffee shop in Olympia, and did a session for somebody, one of my clients. Wonderful session. It was awesome. And before I left, I just sat there with all these people, all these hearts, just wanting their kids to be safe and wanting to be the ones that say, here's what happens with my kids. And you can't state mandate forced vaccinations when there's a known risk of death. And all these hearts were there and everybody with their signs. And one sign just stuck out to me. And it was a sign, there was a vaccine injured child, the pictures of the child before. I think there was a before, there was definitely an after. And this child obviously couldn't talk, obviously couldn't probably walk, was in terrible pain and distress. And they had their little blanket, their blankie. And I just thought how loved that child is. And those parents were trusting our government and the doctors to protect that child. And that's what happened. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, we could see the pain in his face, but he had his little blankie and he was still loved. He's still loved. Now we can win this thing. We can win this thing. And we're going to do it with information, and we're going to do it by being brave and speaking out and talking to people and not just cowering to these people that tell us we can't speak out and don't be crazy and all this bull. We're going to win. And then we're going to let go and drop into our hearts, and they can't control this. They can't control this. So join me now, if you like, and drop into your heart. Just drop into your heart. Whatever that means. You can think of it just like you're just dropping a small version of yourself right into your heart area. And for the next moment, if you want, you can think of something that brings you great joy. And I'm going to drop us all into this heart space and activate the healing power of all of our hearts right now. because they're voting at 8 o'clock this morning. All right, everybody. Thank you. Please share this. We've already won. We've already won. They can't control this. We've already won.